toot. Why, hello. Good afternoon. Outside, yeah. I can't be a total barbarian out here, but, you know, the neighborhood that I live in is definitely like a work-a-day neighborhood. And so most of the folks, I think, that live in this area are at their 9 to 5. And it's kind of nice today. Like it's chilly, but the sun feels good and stuff. You know this tree? Oh no. All I can see behind you is a tiny bit of what I assume is your new place, and it already looks way better than the Cali bunker did. You want to know a secret? What you're seeing over my shoulder is not my place. This should give you an idea of the size of my backyard. What you are seeing over my shoulder, that's not my place. That's my neighbor's place. Yikes. Yeah. Isn't that great? Isn't that just fantastic? There's really nowhere that I can point this camera that you're not going to see somebody else. So this is as good as I can do. You're sending me multiple Pokemon cards. How are you doing that? Do you need an address? You can't just like write Paul's ego on an envelope and drop it in the mail and hope it finds me, you know? What happened with the ending of the last stream? Oh, I got a phone call, and I knew it was going to go on for a while, and so I just ended the stream. Yeah, little outside stream today. Nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing wrong with a little outdoorsmanship. Paul lives in Maine, confirmed. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Maine. When it comes to backyards, I find you are very demanding. Well, I mean, it's just what I want versus reality. I've had backyards like this my whole life. There's nothing wrong with it, really. I haven't met any of my neighbors, but they all seem pretty chill. You know, you're just kind of like sandwiched up against people, which, you know, ideally is not how I would like to live. The other house, like, I missed the yard. I missed the piece of land that it was on, you know? Like, the house itself, like this house that I'm in, dude, it's 10 times nicer than the house I was living in. It was built in, like, the late 90s, this house that I'm living in, late 90s, early 2000s or something. You know, so it's not, like, brand spanking new, but it's got, like, what you would consider to be, like, modern amenities, good wiring. Like, it's not, like, that house that I lived in, dude, that... I don't know if I ever told you guys about it, but when we first moved in there, we had a slew of electrical problems. We first moved in, I remember one day, and I still, to this day, have not heard Amelia make a noise like this. Those of you that have, you know, chilled during these outside streams, or when Amelia joins me, you know that she is a soft-spoken person. Like, very, very much so. She doesn't really raise her voice. And she screamed, "Oh, shit!" And I ran into the kitchen, and the back of the oven had, like, flames coming out of it. I've never seen anything like it. So it's like, "Turn the fucking oven off." She turns the oven off and it dies down. We call the landlord. They take out this oven because it was fucked. Like that oven was not going to work. And they go and get like a cheaper oven, put that in. And it was just a constant like, oh, the power, like we lose power in the kitchen along a whole wall. Just constant. Like we turn on a blender and then half the kitchen dies. And so finally, the landlords agreed to get an electrician to come out and look at the, the wiring and stuff. And this dude came out, and I was just kind of showing him what our problem was, and I showed him the box, and he was like, dude, I've never seen anything like this. He's like, come here. He's like, you know anything about electricity and stuff? And I was like, not really. Like, I've lived in houses, so I know how to flip a breaker or whatever. He's like, well, if you understand how a breaker works, come here. He opened this box. He's like, I want to show you something. He opened our breaker box, and it was ancient, like one of those old, like 70s breaker boxes, right? So it's just like all fucked up in there. And he's like, you see these 3 breakers? And I was like, yeah. He's like, these are all hot. He was like, and look where they lead. And he showed me down underneath the breakers, instead of it like the wires coming out of the breakers going into the wall to control something, somebody had just cut them. And so there were hot wires just hanging. He was like, look at this. And he touched his little, tester to it. It's like, zzz, zzz, zzz. It's like these wires are just, it's like the full voltage of your house just hanging out here in a wire. So they had that thing all like, so they were just exposed. Yeah, they were just dangling in the box, exposed. And like right above there is where you reached. I'd reached in there to fiddle, you know what I mean? If I would have like brushed my hand against that shit, it would have fried me. I would have died. Blew my eyeballs out of my skull. Well, it was up on the wall, so the pets were not going to get close to it, and it was outside too, so that kept that in check. So that house was, falling apart. Old, in dire need of like not just like a makeover, but just probably like a teardown, honestly. The more and more I looked at that house, the more and more I was like, this is a teardown right here. Either a teardown or like a full remodel where they just gut everything, replace all the fucking struts. I can't remember what size breakers they were. They were like 30 amps. There was a double 30 amp breaker that was just cut. I remember that. There was asbestos in the old house, because it was built pre-asbestos law, and so it had asbestos in the fucking insulation and asbestos popcorn ceilings. This is a bad joint, dude. Not a great place to be. Well, see, here's the thing. If I were to have purchased that place, it would have been at a price where I could afford to tear down and rebuild. Like that place, I would be shocked if they are able to sell that place for anything other than land value, even if they fucking fix up the kitchen and stuff, which is what I understand they're doing. Like, I understand that after we moved out, they started like gutting the kitchen and like remodeling the kitchen. That ain't it, bro. Do you rent or own? I rent. Yeah, I'm looking for a place that's worthy of owning. I would never in a million years purchase this house. Nothing wrong with it. The neighbors, like I said, are cool. It's a really pretty neighborhood, relatively quiet, but it is just like the opposite of what I need. Like, being this close to somebody else's house is just, it kind of, like, for me, it undercuts like one of the positives of having a house. It's like this house, if I were to take you guys on a tour of it, it's got this living room that's actually really nice looking, because it's one of those houses where they were like, let's not do an attic, let's do super high ceilings. And which, it looks impressive, I guess, when you first walk in, but it's actually like horrible for heating. You have no insulation in your attic, and so it takes like twice as much fucking hot air to get your house heated. It's just one of those houses that was designed to look good, but when you really look at it, it's sandwiched on what looks like a tiny little piece of land that was in between two bigger lots. Like the people that live back here, they have, I think, maybe not, I don't know. I feel like they've got a bigger lot. I feel like the people that live on the other side of me, the people behind me, certainly have bigger lots. So I'm just kind of surrounded on all sides, and it looks like this tiny little lot was carved out, and they put this kind of like McMansion type of house on it, which, like, for me and Amelia, it's fine, you know. Me and Amelia and the boys, we don't need, you know. But like, if we had kids or something, like, this is a house that deceptively looks like you could have a family in it, but when you really start looking at it, you're like, this wouldn't work. This, I mean, it would, you could make it work, but it's just, you know, I would never even consider buying this house. The architect only had aesthetic in mind. Yeah, and it's a certain type of like waspy aesthetic too. You can tell, like, it was the housing market in the 90s and early 2000s and shit was super hot, and that's when this house was built. And so, like, you know, everybody wanted a house that looked more expensive than it was. You know what I mean? Like, you wanted to walk into your house and see, like I said, in this house, the pointless, like, you know, cathedral ceilings or whatever they call it. It's like, is it impressive when you first see it? You're like, whoa, this room is way bigger and taller than you think it is. Neat. But then you start actually thinking about the functionality of it, and you're like, all right, all right, nah. What's the dream house for you? I mean, I've talked about this before quite a bit, actually. You know, it's been a big thing that's on my mind recently. It's something that I really want for my family. Is and nothing ostentatious at all. Like, really, what I want is a place that's out of the way a little bit, in the foothills somewhere, kind of off the beaten path a little bit. If I could get a place that had like a pseudo private drive, that would be amazing. Like, you know, one of those places that's on a plot of land that you got to take like a private driveway to, up and around the corner before you can even see the house. Oh my fucking god, that would be ideal. The house itself, nothing special, functional. An office for me, an office for Amelia, a bedroom for us, a living room, and a decent kitchen. So 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, you know, on enough land and zoned to where I could put up a prefab building and make a studio out of it. One of the dreams that I have, because I work a lot from home, and anybody that works from home knows that, like, it becomes hard to like separate work from, you know, relaxation. You're always kind of at work, and you're always kind of relaxing, and it's very much it just feels unhealthy. And so one of the things that I would like to do is to have a separate building where it's like, if I'm in there, that's where I'm working. If I'm in, you know, the separate building, that's where I do all my work. That's where all my work, my PC is, my lights, my backdrops, my sets, my soundboard and mics, and anything else that I want to set up in this little prefab. That's where I'm at. And when I'm not in there, I'm not working. Like a big old man shed. No, I really want a comfy place. So my dream for it is, and you can do this pretty cheap with these, like I said, these prefabricated houses and smaller prefab buildings, and but I want to build a big open space that is simultaneously got some corners that are built for chilling and you know, kind of meeting. Because my dream is not only to have a place for me to go to work, but when the dudes visit, we have a place to film content, right? Or let's say that Andrew, who, you know, formerly Marshall Manson, wanted to fucking come visit me, we'd have like a little recording studio there. Like, it would be very easy for him to sit down, plug in an instrument or something, and we could do a jam session in there. Now, I want it to be like a multi-purpose work building that not only accommodates what I do now, but other interests. Like, one of the things that I'm interested in is, I've been talking about it recently, is getting into collecting Warhammer minifigs for Warhammer and painting them up and maybe even playing the game. I think it would be pretty cool to free up the space that I use in my home so that I could have a little studio instead of an office here. You know what I mean? In one of the extra bedrooms, that could be my Warhammer room where I have, really good lighting and a nice big flat table so that I can sit and paint, and have that be my little hobby room. I mean, like I said, these are all like dreams. Who knows? Yeah, I really, I'm not really thinking that far ahead, but you're right about that, Lord Iscariot. I really, at this point, I'm trying to create a place that's for me and for people I know. Just people I know, man. Like an exclusive little spot that is both comfortable and functional. Why away from other houses? Part of it is just functional. What I do requires quiet. And when you live this close to people, even when I'm inside my house, and even though this house that we have has nice dual pane windows and stuff, and so it seals pretty well from the sounds outside. If somebody's mowing my neighbor's lawn, I have to mute my mic up before filming, or I have to apologize to everybody for the lawnmower sounds. I can't have control over the sonic space, and because I'm renting, I can't retrofit a room with soundproofing, which is what I would do if I owned a place. So that's just one functional example of why I would like to live out away from people. It's not just misanthropy. To be honest with you, I really don't mind having neighbors and stuff. I really don't. As long as they're chill, I'm a chill guy to live around. You know what I mean? I'm not a nosy guy. You're not going to get any troubles from me. I'm not looking to put my nose in other people's business and shit. So I'm fine with it. Like, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I live near like a stadium. Not a stadium, but like a small college practice stadium where you guys probably can't hear it. Maybe you can barely, vaguely hear it, but I can hear the sounds of the marching band out here, which is kind of neat. Drum drills at night. Them doing that. I can hear the ding, 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 the little metronome that they use. You're the dude from Home Improvement, always looking over the fence. I'm actually the opposite of that guy. If you take Wilson, I'm the opposite of that guy. I never peek over the fence and say howdy neighbor. I figure that like people are wanting to do their own thing. I'm a very a man's home is his castle or whatever type of guy, I guess. And so I don't seek to be a bad neighbor, and I also don't seek to insinuate myself in other people's lives. So this was very much a oh shit, we have to move. We weren't planning on moving anytime soon, and then oh shit, we have to move type of place. And it just happened to be like one of the worst times in recent American history to try and find a rental property like this. They're just nowhere. They're either nowhere or they're so obscenely overpriced for what you get. So, finding a little place like this that was within our budget, that was really number one. Number two was how functional is it as a place to do my business from, to be a podcaster in. And the answer to that is not very. So, Amelia and I are looking. So this was kind of a, hey, we took it because it was better than most of the other offerings. We started looking at apartments again because I was like, I've lived a lot of years in apartments. I'm fine with apartment life, especially if I know it's temporary. There's a lot of bullshit that's taken off the table when you rent an apartment. we started looking at apartments that were 2-bedroom, and literally the apartments that we looked at were more expensive than this house that we're renting, which is a 3-bedroom. So it was the fucking housing market is just topsy-turvy right now. It's absolutely insane. I really feel for people that, you know, it's one of those times where I feel like I'm really lucky, I guess, fortunate that I developed a revenue stream for myself that allows me to kind of put within my budget what the baseline seems to be right now, because I think a lot of people are just fucking priced out of this shit. Sucks because you're buying a house in 2 months. Oh man, I mean, it's up to you, and a lot of things can happen in 2 months, but I'm just telling you, man, you better be so fucking careful if you're buying a house right now. So careful. Because here's the thing, the housing market is super hot right now. Even in places where it's like starting to cool a little bit, it's still super, super overvalued. And so, like, one of the things that happened in 2008 is that the housing market had been on such fire that it seemed like nobody could lose money in it. And so people that barely had the money to make the mortgage were buying these big ass places, thinking like, well, I buy it for $350,000 now, and that's a high price, but you know, it's going to be worth $500,000 in a year. And then all of a sudden it's worth $120,000. And people are sitting on, they literally have a loan with a bank for $350,000 on a home that's now worth $150,000. And so they owe double and then some what the house is even worth. It's like, that's called being underwater on the loan. And I'm telling you, man, that is something that I am very, very much in tune with. I've never made a bad decision in that way. I've never ended up underwater on a purchase, and I never will. And that precludes me from buying a house right now. We can start looking at properties that we think are fucking nice and start looking at different states. But when it comes to like buying a house right now, I mean, you know, look, Alan, it's up to you, bro. I don't know where you live and I don't know what your situation is. I'm just saying be careful. That's all I have to say about that. Not knowing what's going on, you might want to think about looking for a 6-month lease or a year lease and wait that out. I understand the impetus and the desire to have your own place. Trust me, I'm living there now. You know, but just be careful, man, because people get ruined. You know, you end up having to declare bankruptcy. Quick question: how do you manage an age gap in a relationship? Genuinely curious and could use the advice. What's your approach? The gap is 8 years. I don't really know that I have an approach, dude. To me, there are like I've met people that are my wife's age, and they're in their 20s, that seem like kids to me. You know, from my perspective as a 40-year-old. And you know, I could never like have a meaningful long-term relationship with somebody like that. It would just be incompatible, you know. But on the other end of that spectrum, there are people that are, you know, I'm trying to think of the right language. Ahead of their years or whatever the fuck doesn't seem right. There are people that have an innate maturity, or people that, like me, started life early. Like when I say started life early, I mean left home early, went right into the workforce early. And there's a lot that goes into that. You know what I mean? In terms of putting some maturity on a person really quickly. Like if you, at 18, like I did, and like Amelia did, just moved right out into the world, and immediately you're on the wage clock, you know? you can't really hang for too long in that space of like, oh, I'm a college student, or I'm still living at home and I work part-time here and I'm taking classes or whatever. Like, that's different to me than somebody that's just like, boom, I went into the workforce. I fucking had bills that if I didn't pay them, I was, kicked out. And when Amelia and I met, age came up as a factor. I mean, obviously, as an older dude, I'm gonna think when I find out, that somebody is younger than I am by a significant margin. Um, there's gonna be like some trepidation there. But Amelia and I were friends for a long time, and I will tell you, there's a difference in talking to people. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've met 20-year-olds that, they feel like they're still living their high school days. And then I've met people like Amelia who are, hard to pin down age wise, not because they look older than they are, but because they present themselves and carry themselves older than they are. And, you know, so I guess the answer to the question is how do I manage it or whatever? How do we manage it? It's not really something that I feel like needs to be managed all that much. Like, there are little quirks about it. Like, we came from different eras, you know what I mean? So she didn't grow up with the same kind of influences in media and stuff that I did. And so there's definitely a gap there in terms of like, what kind of TV shows did we grow up with? What kind of cartoons did we watch? What kind of movies were we into? What kind of music was popular when we were in high school? There's a difference there, but I really don't know anybody who's based like an actual human relationship on liking Nirvana or whatever the fuck, or being into grunge. So I really don't know. Well, I mean, and that's another thing too, is like, when it comes to a lot of the things that I think are expected of people, when people talk about like, uh, you're maturing, um, I feel like I lag behind that expectation just kind of naturally. Um, I know how to pay a bill. I know how to work a job and keep a job for a long period of time and pay rent and find a place and all this adulting stuff I've done and I can do. But when it comes to the mindset of a lot of adults, especially in my age group, I find myself kind of an outsider. And I think a lot of people would say that it's maybe a gap in what they would call maturity. But I think that more realistically, it's about the fact that I just have lived differently than them. I never had children, um, and that will put some uh, personality changes on you for sure. I didn't follow I guess, traditional path through life, not my whole life anyway. I worked very traditional 9 to 5 type of jobs for most of my life, and then I kind of split off and started doing something very different. And it puts me in a position where it's hard to explain to other adults what I do. If I worked in a factory, or, I worked, as a police officer or a fireman, or, there's a certain baseline of knowledge around those things from people, and they consider those things to be normal. I work in an office, I work in an office building, or I sell insurance, or whatever it is. And when people ask what I do, there's there's almost like it just turns their brains off, because they're just like, oh, this person he's one of those people that lives one of these strange, lucky lifestyles where he skirts around actual work or whatever. And I honestly don't blame people for feeling that way. but that isn't how it plays out in my life and my experience. But I can't expect other people to know that, you know. I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, to a certain extent, it blows my mind how old I am sometimes, because I don't feel personally a whole lot different than I was 10 years ago. But in actuality, if I really start taking it down, I'm very different, you know, very different. You know, it'd be hard to imagine a 42-year-old Paul having a conversation with 22-year-old Paul. I would have found myself pretty insufferable, I think, at this age. So, shocked you're 30, you don't feel it, yeah. I mean, that's a good thing, right? How have you become different over the 10 years? Um, I mean, there's a word that comes to mind immediately, and it has a negative connotation a lot of times. Selfish. To me, not in a negative way. I spent a lot of years as what I would call a doormat. Now, I wasn't always a doormat to everybody, but I was definitely the type of guy that would go out of his way for his friends and his family, and you know, only occasionally saw that reciprocated. And that's a doormat. That's somebody that is like, I'm here, wipe your feet on me. Things like this, like you know, in my 20s, I've got all these, you know, friends that I grew up in high school with, right? And in your 20s, in our 20s, we moved a lot. It was like, you know, you go from apartment to rental house to apartment. You know, as we got into our 30s, people were moving into new places and stuff. And, you know, the call would go out, you know, hey, you know, you guys want to help us move? We're moving on this date. Anybody that can make it, we'd appreciate it. You know, that type of thing. And I was always there, man, always there. Very rarely did I miss helping somebody move. You know, when the call went out, if I had to work or something, it was understandable I couldn't do it. But when I had to move, dude, it was nowhere near all hands on deck. You know what I mean? It was just like a couple people would show up, some of them late. I remember one time a friend that I'd helped move 2 or 3 times helped me to move my stuff into our new house wearing flip-flops. He showed up wearing flip-flops and cargo shorts to help me move. And I was like, bro, just go home. Like, fuck. I'm not going to watch you get your foot crushed by a fucking desk. You know what I mean? And that's just one example. That's not everything. You know what I mean? But I was very, very much an open guy with my home and my time. And no, I didn't see that reciprocated in a lot of my relationships. Let's put it that way. And so it all kind of culminated in a story that I've told you guys before, where my ex-wife and I had a friend of mine who got a divorce and needed a place to stay. And what started out as a, hey, come get on your feet here, you can stay in one of our spare bedrooms and blah, 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 turned into 6 years of living with this person as a roommate. And, you know, whatever. You can't carry that negativity around forever. And to the extent that I can, you know, I've gotten over that shit. But that was unreal. It was just unreal how much I allowed myself to be abused in a house and an area of my life that was so intimate and so personal. You know, not like helping people too much. It's like having somebody that just doesn't have any impetus to go and live anywhere else because you're giving them such a fucking good deal. You know, we charged him nothing. Yeah. I mean, he paid a nominal fee every month, but for the house that he was living in and the amount of that house that he used constantly, especially after he had his kid, oh my fucking god, bro. The thing I'm salty about when I think back at that, at first I was just salty at him, but now I'm salty at me because that was just a fucking absolute nightmare of a time in my life that'll never be repeated, ever. And so that, in a roundabout way, I guess would tell you how I'm different uh, than I was 10 years ago. I'm way less apt to extend myself to another person in that way. And way more apt to consider my own needs and my family's needs. And when I say my family, I mean Amelia and Dinor and Cricket. Not to speak ill of my family, but I put them where they put me, you know. Oh yeah, dude. I'd come home after a long ass fucking day of work, and the living room would just be like a tornado went through it. If the tornado hit like a Hasbro factory or some shit, just like baby toys, kid toddler toys everywhere, and like the remnants of some fucking lunch just like sitting there on my coffee table to the point where I couldn't even like set a beer down on it if I wanted to without having to do dishes for somebody. And I lived like that for, I mean, he didn't have the kid the whole time, but I'd say he was with us about a year before he had the kid. So I'd say a good 5 years of my life from that kid being a baby until he was about 5 years old. I was fully and completely immersed in somebody else's fucking oopsie baby. And you know what I mean? That bled the last of it out of me. It actually drove me to the point of like mental crisis because I didn't know how to confront the difference between the gregarious friend that's always there for his buddies because we go way back, and the guy that was sick to fucking death of dealing with somebody else's drama and child in his house. I didn't know how to square those two people up. I wasn't strong enough, I guess, to stand up for myself. And then when I got strong enough to do it, it came at a heavy, heavy toll. Because digging into that led me to dig into my marriage and find out that that was not working. And so it was not just putting the kibosh on that friendship, but it was putting a kibosh on my marriage and my life, basically. That was there's no way you come out of that unchanged. It was just a big event. What happened when the guy left your house? He never did. I left before he did. He still lived there when I moved out. Yeah. And so, like, that was the end result, though, of, years and years and years and years of imbalanced relationships. And I don't have any of those anymore. Or, oh, well, okay, I do. But I'm very selective about how I apply those. My family is very different from me, and I put up with them I put up with those differences as they do as a choice. But there's definitely like, not an equal relationship in a lot of those family relationships, but I keep those at arm's length now. That's how I get around it. I'm not up my family's ass 24/7, 365. I visit when I feel like it. I call when I feel like it, and that's the way I manage it. And it seems to work fine for them too, so. watched you in your Occupy Wall Street video. You seem like a similar person. And then, yeah, I mean, that was in the midst of what this era that we're talking about, you know. That video was shot in the house that I'm talking about, in the circumstances that I'm talking about, with a marriage that was, you know, just at no fault of either of us, just wasn't working, and was becoming more and more obvious that it wasn't working. And then just this really exploitative situation where, you know, because I felt like, you know, it would be like kicking him and his child into the street, you know what I mean? And I was very much ruled by the history that I have with this person. Is a person that I'd known since freshman year of high school. You know, we were bosom buddies, best friends, I would have said at the time. Definitely. And that relationship had to go because it was really my fault, not his. Just horribly exploitative. And you really find out, you know, about people as time goes on. There's this idealized narrative that I think a lot of people come out of high school with. We're like, oh man, I got this group of friends, I'll know them forever. And hey, some people do. Some people manage to stay in touch with a few of their friends from high school, and they remain cordial and cool. You know, I'm still in touch with people that I knew from my childhood, and I remain cordial and cool with them, but I'd hesitate to say that we have like a functioning, ongoing friendship. Really what we've got is history, which is fine. You know, that's cool. The hardest part about that situation was that during all of it, and it's very easy for me to explain now because I've had the benefit of, you know, years to think about and contextualize it. But at the time, I didn't even really know how to explain what was going on in my life to people, you know. And so when I pulled the plug, and by pulled the plug, I mean left my marriage and everything else with it, really the kind of final sacrifice that you make is the esteem of people. Because from the outside looking in, without the benefit of this, how does that look? How does it look? Dude up and just leaves his wife, and then a couple weeks later you hear he's living in Texas with a girlfriend. I know what I'd think if that's what I knew, you know. And so you can't really just go to every person and explain this shit. And so the people that care enough to ask know, and the people that don't think I'm a piece of shit, and that's their right. Just like it was my right to blow up my life and build it from the ground up. I wouldn't, you know, begrudge them that opportunity if it's what they decided to do. You guys hang out for a second. I'm gonna go get something to drink. Oh, you guys like my sweatshirt? It's backwards on here, but it reads, "Did TJ shit his britches?" Obviously, 51%. Clearly, yes, 50%. That settles it. That settles that matter. These will be for sale soon, by the way. I've got a prototype. Tinder sucks. I always regret downloading it, and I'm a relatively attractive dude. Help me pool. I don't know what I got no experience with that. I've never downloaded Tinder or Grinder or any of the other Datester or whatever the fuck. I've never downloaded any of those, so never used them, never met a person on them, never swiped left or right. So can't help you there, bud. As a boomer, what do you think about the trend of dating apps? I mean, I'm not really a boomer, but as a person that you know used to do analog dating, is that what you're asking? I don't really care. I mean, I think it's cool, to be honest with you. I don't really know how effective it is at hooking people up in the long run, but whatever. I'm on OkCupid, having very sparse luck, a little more reliable than Tinder, but I'm not getting my hopes up, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if I could do it. Like, I don't know that I could meet a person through one of those apps. Not that I have any aversion to it or I think it's wrong or anything. I just don't know that I could commit myself to the process or whatever. The ending of the Sparty episode was great. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it was fun. It was a tough episode, man. Amelia helped me with it and, you know, was pulling a lot of the historical kind of stuff. And I ended up looking at that and I was like, oh my God, this is so dense. It's just one of those topics that's like, it's hard to boil down. And so I took her research and baked it into this, like, what does my dumbass already know versus what the reality was. And I think that ended up making it a way better episode than it would have been. You know what I mean? Had we worked apart on it. It's one of the awesome things about having Amelia help me with my research and stuff is that she's been doing it for a while now, and she's really developed like a good instinct for the structure, the way I structure episodes, and so it makes it very easy for us to collaborate on research. Y'all should do a show on the deep web. The deep web, dude. The dark net. No thanks. I mean, it wasn't necessarily dry. It's just that, like, the way I think about episodes, every episode has to have a hook, you know, especially the shorter episodes. Sometimes the longer episode, the hook is the long form discussion, but in the shorter episodes, each episode has to have a hook, and sometimes finding that hook is the hard part. And I think that that's what I'm best at, is taking, you know, what is good but relatively dense information and picking out the parts and finding the hook. Whatever. Did you DFF Edward Snowden? His memoir is really, really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to read his memoir, honestly. Love Paul. Love Paul. All right, buddy. Calm down now. Calm down. Yeah, the Giuliani episode just keeps growing. It proves how right I was yet again. Did you guys see that Giuliani was on like The Masked Singer or some shit? Did you see this? He went on The Masked Singer, and like one of the judges just like walked out in protest. Yeah, he went on that show, The Masked Singer, probably because they offered him like 10 grand to do it. Not even joking. Go look it up. Giuliani. Oh, it was two of the judges. Yeah, you're right. I'm just telling you, man, the Giuliani episode might have to be a 3-parter or just like an epic 6-hour Patreon special. Because I'm telling you, man, he's got more in those sacks of lies, dude. Giuliani is going to give more. Every time I think it's time, like I think, all right, the Giuliani thing has died down. He's just going to kind of like fade into obscurity and can do the episode on him. Nope. Nope. Because, you know, the dude blows a fart in open court, just like gasses out his fucking paralegal right there in the middle of open court. He's like shaving in little greasy diners and popping up on reality TV shows, and it's just not done, man. I know little about Giuliani. Most people don't. Most people know nothing about Rudy Giuliani. He's had quite the arc. I have a Giuliani research file started, yes, but it is very rudimentary. It's mostly just links so that I can structure a timeline, and remember, you know, certain events that I definitely want to cover. But it needs filling out. But I'm not even gonna start on that shit until the arc is complete. And in my mind, with a person like Giuliani, he'll either like end up in prison or dead. And at that point, even at that point, it might be stupid to do it for a couple of months or 3 months because some shit is going to come out after he's dead or in prison that's going to fucking be worthy of adding. His YouTube avatar is him 30 years younger. Of course it is. Of course it is. But think about it though, dude. Even if he bites it, what's going to come out after he bites it that needs to be in this comprehensive episode? Because there's no way this episode is like, there's no way to do a mini-sode on it. It's going to have to be a long form patrons only event, and I don't even know, you can't even start it while the story's, you know, we have to see the season finale first. How old is Rudy? He's in his 70s, like 76 or something, 75. He's ancient. He was on Epstein's plane under a pseudonym in the flight logs. Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't know, man. I don't know how long it'll be. It'll be as long as it needs to be, you know? Who knows? But it's going to be an epic task. There's just so much. So much has to be collected, collated, vetted, timelined, inserted into the research. It's a surgical process, my friends. And I'm not even going to start in earnest until the season finale, because there's no point. the season finale could very well change the entire timbre of the episode. Who knows? We need a Paul gaming channel. I'm really bad at playing video games and talking at the same time. That's a skill that is I never really learned. I'm better at playing games that are immersive, that are meant to be, but I wish I was better at playing games that were like I could do it in the background while I talk, but I'm just never developed the skill to focus on two things at once in that way. And I get pulled into the video game, and then I'd rather just be playing the video game alone. What if some sort of Metal Gear Solid 3 twist, he was actually a hero that kept America? See, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm having somewhat of a quarter life crisis at 26. Have you ever dealt with a quarter life crisis of finding meaning in your life, and what insights have you learned entering your 30s? I don't know. Um, the whole idea of a quarter life crisis is kind of a new idea, and I really think it describes just the normal period of uncomfortability as you go from a ward of your parents and a ward of the state a lot of the times when you're in school to being responsible for every detail of your life. And I think that pretty much everybody goes through it. And you know, the only advice I would have would be really trite. Like the only way out is through. There's no right way to do it. I don't know. My 30s were huge. They were transformative for me. Um, in multiple ways. I just turned 30 and I violently alternate between thinking I'm still relatively young and about to die. Hey Fleshaga, are you just gonna be a nonsense guy today? I'm in a good mood, man. I'm feeling good. I got the chemtrails and everything. But if you're just gonna be a nonsense guy, I'll get you banned up real quick. So let me know. Your next comment is a very important one. Because I feel like I've read a couple of comments of yours that are just absolutely like silly. So when you come back in 300 seconds, make your next comment like something that's salient to the conversation or interesting, or I'm going to ban your stupid ass. Who's your most favorite chat member? I don't play favorites, man. I don't play favorites with my chat. I guess you would say that, like, if I do, it's people that have the blue wrench, but, a Spectre is chosen for their particular abilities. Not necessarily playing favorites, just certain Spectres have certain powers, certain abilities that I need. They have a certain set of skills that make them very dangerous. trails. Gotta be careful with this one. I'm gonna have to do the train track exhale on this one. It's like Keith Boo. Don't tell anybody. Got air traffic in my area, as much as anywhere else, I would imagine. I, like many people, live in a flyover area. I'm actually relatively near to a military air station. So, military jets. What type of music do you like, Mr. Paul? I like. A better question would be, what kind of music do you not like? I have what I consider to be a relatively eclectic taste in music, and I give credit to that to my parents, who they themselves have very eclectic tastes in music. So it's hard for me to find a genre of music that I can't find something that I like in. All about that death metal, yeah. You remember Cody Weber's music that you listened to with TJ? Yeah, yeah, I do. I'm very glad to hear you're in higher spirits today, Paul. I want good shit for you, dude. Oh, well, thanks. What do you expect it to be like inside the intelligence community? Like this? Expect it to be like inside of it? Dude, I would have any. Dude, I'm the furthest from a person that would even be able to speculate on that shit. Like, my life is not that. Never interested in being in law enforcement or, you know, military dude or anything like that. So it would literally be based on just like stupid movie stuff that I've seen, where it's like, you know, there's this really brutalist receiving room with an armed guard behind a desk, you know, and it looks all innocuous. And then you go, you know, if you have the clearance, he waves you through a set of automatic double doors that open you up into like a complex of all this ridiculous spy stuff, like oscillometers and stuff, and a bunch of like dudes in white lab coats, you know, chilling, the dialing in on different frequencies. And as you walk by them, you know, like you hear like different foreign languages. You know, they're just monitoring like different terrorist cells all over the world. That's pretty much what but yeah, like you're hustled away from a room, or somebody pulls a curtain back real quick, but you like glance over there and you see a bunch of dudes all suited up, and there's like a gray laying on the table. You know, they're doing experiments in there. I don't know what it's like in there. That's what I assume, though. I just sent you a $20. I was deleted. Bruh. That's not the way it works, man. That's honestly not the way it works. So you're not swing and a miss. What would be the benefit to hiding the aliens anyway? I don't know. Because, like, people are degenerates now. Well, look what they did with the anime and furries and stuff. We don't need that. We don't need an alien fetishization culture. So hide them. Keep them stashed away in the NSA lab or whatever. remember Jesse Ventura going to Area 51. Yeah. Nah, dude. I'm pretty sure that that's what it looks like in there. Just a bunch of like oscilloscopes and white lab coat dudes listening and translating and collating data on everybody's cell phones, and like a big giant wall that's like a giant display screen. You know what I mean? All right. Bye, Fleshaga. See you in the next life, buddy. See you next alt, homie. A wall full of old CRT monitors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because they're the only ones that can work with the weird tech that they have in there. What's on the screen? Like like tactical data about different places. Like it's constantly changing. To update the people that are working in the big giant room about the tactical data of everything. It's like one minute it's on Afghanistan and it's showing like hot spots in Afghanistan, and it zooms in and shows like troop movements, and then it zooms out and like goes to China and like zooms in and shows some satellite footage of some trucks moving through the mountains or whatever, and like highlights like something that looks like it could be a missile, and then it zooms out and like, you know what I mean? Yeah, targeting reticules and like predator vision, where it's like, they've got satellite footage and it's all, you know, heat sensing or whatever, and it's just constantly like moving around the globe showing different things that are going on. Pulling up random pictures, yeah, and then it can like cut seamlessly to like the cameras that are on the troops on the ground and some of the operations, so that they can get a bird's eye view and then zoom in and see what the tactical situation is, and then follow. It's probably nowhere near as cool, dude. It's probably really depressing. It's probably like a cubicle zone in the NSA or the CIA or whatever. Patreon sucks and won't let me pay Pessimist Productions, so here's some money for you. That sucks. You can vouch for your boy Fleshaga. Okay. You can join him at his fate then. Watch any movies lately or plan to? Yeah, I watch movies all the time. Recently watched Shutter Island, which I've seen twice before. So I saw Shutter Island in the theaters when it came out, and then I watched it again. I don't know, a few years later, and I watched it again last night. It's a really neat movie. It's got an amazing score that's almost like a character in the film. It's got like really well scored. It makes it feel like an older movie, the way that it's the sound is used. It's like there are times where they cut out Foley. Like you'll have these like really tense moments where they're in the basement of this old drippy Civil War fort, and normally scenes like that in a modern movie would be just absolutely overcome with dripping noises and the Foley of their feet hitting puddles, and they turn all that off in the movie to create this like really claustrophobic and tense moment as they're moving through these places, and you can hear like maybe every once in a while some distant gibbering from the patients that are locked up in there, but otherwise all that overwrought Foley that they would put in a normal movie where you're just hearing drips and draps and flip flaps of their feet. All of that's gone. You can't even hear them walking. You can see the water falling around them, but you can't hear it. It's just dark and claustrophobic and dense. So it's rare to see a movie that knows how to drop in and out like that. You know what I mean? I find that modern movies are a lot like early movies where there was this really bombastic score throughout the entirety of it because there was so little they could do with the actors and their audio. And so, you know, I feel like a lot of modern movies use these soundtracks so extensively that, and so uncreatively that, you know, they may as well just not be there. As a point of fact, a lot of these movie companies reuse soundtracks a lot. I mean, to my utter disdain. I hate it when I hear a movie. So Shutter Island is actually a movie, you know, speaking of, that has a soundtrack that was stolen for other movies. It's just like absolutely ganked. So it's that flat droning and it builds on itself. The you know what I mean? It's been used in a billion different movies and it sucks because in this movie it's really used to ramp that tension up. It ends on that really high crescendo with the strings. Just when you think it can't get more oppressive. Well, this was before Inception. Inception's bois was a little different, but you know, very similar to the bois that I'm talking about in this movie. Just this movie is it's not you know, the flipped soundtrack of another song that's been slowed way down. It's you know, an actual orchestral piece. The bois, dude. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Once that happened, once that movie came out and that trailer came out, it's like every movie had the bois. Every time you see a every time you see a preview, it's got that bois. If it's an action movie or like a suspense movie or a space movie or something, oh yeah, dude, you're gonna have the bois. If you don't have the bois, you ain't got nothing. Can you explain how sound engineering in movies have always generally opted for a wide decibel range from lowest to highest intensities and opted for really low vocals? Because that's what sounds best in theaters. So when you have this like $50,000 JBL theater experience set up, right, where you've got, you know, 5 or 6 subwoofers in the room, huge, you know, 15, 16-inch speakers, you know, strategically placed in the room to give true 360-degree surround sound. That sound configuration that you just described sounds the best in that environment because you can pump the vocals directly at the audience, so you don't have to put it so high in the mix, so that the soundscape can surround the audience and the vocals still be heard. But when you take that kind of mixing, now there are various things obviously that they do to it to mix for home theater, but when the movie is initially mixed like that, oftentimes when you reach your home theater experience where a lot of people are just like me, I don't have a surround sound system, I got a sound bar, you know, and a little subwoofer. And so a lot of times movies can have very muted sounding dialogue because they just had trouble bringing it up in the mix without bringing everything down in the mix. But that's the best answer I can give to that question. Good movies are mixed as lovingly as they're shot. Let's put it that way. And a lot of times, you know, a movie, if it doesn't make a lot of money, they're not going to pay somebody a bunch of money to go through and remix the movie perfectly. They're going to pay somebody to do a quick pass, put it on the DVD, stick it up on the streaming service, get it out there, you know. And then you end up with basically a final at-home cut with a movie where your dialogue is low or some sounds are just screechingly loud in comparison to the overall tone of the movie, and you realize that this is just like a relic from being in a big giant 14 to 7 theater setting, you know what I mean? I do agree with that, Alistair. Tenet. See, I've gotten to the point now. Let me old man ramble for a second. Like, I've gotten to the point now where my hearing is not as good as it used to be. I mean, my hearing has always been kind of sus. I was really abusive of my hearing in my 20s. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, dude. What do you want me to do? Headphones, and nobody was warning us back then, man. We cranked it. I don't know what to tell you. We cranked it loud, and that's the way it was. And now I'm getting into my 40s, and it's like, huh? That's probably the thing it's sad, but it's probably the thing rivaling I love you that I've said most to Amelia in the time that I've known her is, huh? Or what was that, baby? Say what? Say what, Sonny? So yeah, but I remember in Tenet, I've developed this habit where I do not watch a movie, a TV show, or anything without subtitles on. I don't care if it's in English, obviously I'd have to watch it if it's in a foreign language. I have subtitles on 24/7, 365 all the time. I never turn them off. If they're off, I stop the movie and turn them on. Like, I'm not even interested in what, because like I miss so much. I miss so much of the dialogue if those aren't on. You know what I mean? I feel like this problem coupled with my suspect hearing. No, Tenet was a good movie. We were talking about how it was poorly sound mixed, and I agree with that. The vocal tracks were oftentimes way below everything else in the mix, and without having subtitles on, like, Amelia doesn't have the same problems that I do with her hearing, and she still probably would have lost about half of those lines. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. Like, for the home theater experience, like a 2.2 to 1 system, like I've got, like a little sound bar with a little subwoofer or something, that movie was mixed horrible. Phone Booth was a good movie. Yeah, really neat examination of the chamber film. You know what I mean? A really interesting way to make a movie that wouldn't have otherwise been a chamber film into a chamber film by forcing this "you're stuck in the phone booth" narrative. I liked it. It was fun. It was a good flick. Recent chamber film was Mass, which I thought was great. I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it. I watched this movie called a French Canadian movie, I think, or maybe just a French movie, but it was in Franglish, which is interesting. It kind of makes me excited because, like, movies from other countries are starting to, like, become widely available, which means that, like, the power of Hollywood is being broken a little bit. It just goes to show you that, like, these indie movie studios and foreign movie studios, but this movie that I watched was called Meander. That's the American name for it. The French name is Meandre. But it was basically, if you've ever seen that movie Cube, it was basically that. I think it very unashamedly is inspired by the movie Cube. It's just basically a woman that's stuck in these series of pipes and weird rooms that are built that have traps that she has to figure out how to overcome, and there's no real rhyme or reason as to why she's there, and you know, it has a lot of callbacks, I think, to Cube. Not a rip-off of Cube. Yeah, dude, if you like Cube, Dry Mouth, I would really recommend that you check out Meander. I think it's on Amazon Prime. I think that's where I saw it. By the way, my Prime subscription that I canceled, I can't even remember. I think it was in April. Will finally end this April or March. So wonderful. My fave was Hypercube. Not my fave, but I like the cubes. Yeah, watch it on Prime. Have you seen The Platform? Um, I'm trying to remember. Is that the one where like aliens abduct people and there's just like random people all standing around and each one of them has to like decide who dies next or whatever? There's a movie that I watched and I wish I could remember what it was called because I'd like to go back and watch it again. But that was the premise. It was like it just a bunch of people are taken up into a spaceship, but you don't get to see it. They just like wake up in a room. Is that The Circle? I can't remember the name of that flick, but yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen it then. I have not seen Platform. But yeah, other than that, we've been on kind of a kick watching some older films. We watched Inherit the Wind, the original 1956 or 60s version of it. It was early 60s or late 50s. And it was really good. Definitely like a propaganda piece, but because if you actually look into the Scopes monkey trial, it was basically like a showpiece. Like the guy that they make the hero of Inherit the Wind, was really just like in on it. He was trying to be like the poster boy for them enforcing this law or challenging it or whatever. So he knew what he was doing from the get go. He wasn't just like they paint him in the movie like I'm just a science teacher and I'm just trying to teach science. And would that it were so, but no, he was part of the religious establishment who wanted to solidify their ability to enforce, not teaching evolution in the classroom or whatever. And he was basically the patsy that agreed to be set up. That's in reality. In the movie, he's just a noble dude who struggles with his belief in God, but his desire to teach scientific truth in an era where it was not allowed. you know. But yeah, we watched that. What else did we watch recently? We watched Night of the Hunter, which dude, I gotta recommend that movie to everybody. That's definitely a movie that I will go back and watch again. It's an anti-hero that I love an anti-hero like everybody else, and it's just a really early example of an anti-hero that's way darker than you would think would be possible. And in fact, the movie when it came out suffered because of how dark it was, but now it's just perfect. Night of the Hunter is creepy. Robert Mitchum is brilliant in it. Just like a career-defining performance, and I'd never seen it, and so man, I felt like that was a real gap that I filled in, especially given my proclivities with movies. Night of the Hunter for sure. Yeah, Mitchum is great, man. He went on to play Max Cady in Cape Fear. Yeah, the Knuckles guy. Yeah, his love and hate on his hands. And this is back in 1955, so hand tats in 1955. What platform had Night of the Hunter? I think it was. I can't remember honestly. It was either it was I only have Prime and then I have HBO Max through Roku or whatever the fuck. So it was one of those. No, man, movies are great. Movies are definitely, my pastime passion. I love watching them. I love talking about them. Um, I love speculating about them. I love learning about them. We watched a Hitchcock movie too recently, a really early one from like 1938 or something called The 39 Steps. And it was like a spy movie, kind of like a film noir spy thing. But it was really good. It really, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times the worst thing a movie can do is to fuck around with your time, basically. You know, uh, and I feel like a really well crafted movie never does that, despite whatever length it is. Any updates on TJ and Chelsea sending good vibes? I haven't heard. I kind of feel like no news is good news. I know TJ's resting. I know Chelsea's resting. I don't want to bug them. I don't want to call them and wake them up out of a much needed restorative slumber, but they're fine. Fine, on the mend, all of that. There's a play version of 39 Steps where 4 people play like every character, and I was in a version of it. It was really cool. Oh, neat. I did not know that. What happened? Chelsea and TJ have COVID. Yeah, Chelsea came down with it, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and then TJ came down with it. So, other than that, I've been nerding out about Warhammer 40K, just trying to. I think I've decided on the army that I want to collect, but now I've got to learn. Like, I've got to get a space set up in my house and all that, and get the brushes and the paints and all that, and decide on the color scheme I want to do on my army, and then watch endless YouTube videos of how to paint these things and try and make a cool looking army. Paint a few guys first, and then move on, buy a couple new packs of other guys and build those, and paint them. So I'm at the stage where I'm looking at probably buying the rule book and the army codex for the army that I've chosen. Black and red, yeah. No, I'm not gonna go that route. I'm decided I'm gonna collect Adeptus Mechanicus. They're just the faction whose lore speaks to me the most and whose aesthetic is coolest to me, and that's what everybody that I've watched a lot of videos and listened to a lot of people talk about it, and to a T, every last one of them is like, don't pick an army because it happens to be good in the meta. Pick an army because you like the look of it and the feel of it. And so I'm definitely going to be collecting Mechanicus, which is cool. So now it's just a matter of, picking out my couple of first models and getting myself to a position where I've got a little place set up in there with some good lighting so I can try painting some. What do you think of the Chaos Space Marines? I don't know, man. I'm not real into the whole Space Marine. I think they're cool, but I feel like, especially when it comes to just generic, the Space Marine part of Warhammer, I think that, like, if I do end up playing games, 90% of the games I play is going to be against Space Marines of some stripe, or Chaos Marines, because they're, eventually going to get a codex, and everybody kind of likes that core thing. They get a lot of the most, they get a lot of the lore, and a lot of the most revered lore involves them. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And so I felt like I wanted to pick something that isn't necessarily super usual to see on the table, but I'm not going to, play competitively or anything. But I just wanted to bring a different type of army, so that if I do find a little hobby shop to play at or a little gaming place to play at or whatever, I'm not bringing an army that they see every day. You know, it's not, Space Marines and orcs, because as far as I understand, that's, you see a lot of Space Marines, you see a lot of orcs, which is kind of like the core, the early days of 40K. That's what it was. Somebody said they play Eldar. That's really cool. I think Eldar has a pretty cool aesthetic, and they just got a new codex too. And from what little bit I know about the game, it sounds like that they're going to be pretty powerful. Like they've got this like ability to move. What is it? It's like a shoot twice, basically. It's like they can shoot, move, and shoot, or they can. I can't. Whatever. I don't know enough about the game, but they've got like a really powerful way to like optimize their shooting now versus other people. So that's kind of cool. Looking forward to Total War Warhammer 3. I gotta be honest with you, dude. I have Total War Warhammer 2 and a bunch of the add-on packs, and I really feel like I would probably just save some money diving into that because I played some of it, but not much. I did one campaign to completion as Chaos because it was just so simple. Like I felt like I was playing the game on literal easy mode. It was just ridiculous. Like I did, because of the way that they work, you don't really have to worry about maintaining cities or anything. You just kind of like raise everything and gather forces from the downtrodden and move on and create this like huge unbeatable army where you can just kind of beat everybody in the field. And that's how I did it. But I never got good enough at that. I leaned on that a lot, you know. My force was always like super powerful, and I really didn't like I said, I didn't have to play half the game. And so I feel like at this point, like it looks cool and I'll probably get it eventually. But dude, I have no advice. I'm just getting into it myself. I guess advice would be check out the tons and tons of hobby channels on YouTube. I guess there's tons. There's like literally hundreds of content creators dedicated to talking about Warhammer lore, talking about the game, doing actual like they call them battle reports of the game where you get to watch the game played live, talking about painting, collecting, how to get into it, how to choose an army, where to start in the lore, all that stuff, dude. There's tons of it. So go. That's how I started when I went beyond just like casual interest and started like actually thinking about maybe starting a collection. But I haven't even done that yet, so it would be stupid of me to give any advice. I've spent the last like couple of months like ruminating on like what army do I want, and really like trying to do a deep dive into the lore and stuff of each of the armies that interested me from an aesthetic standpoint. And it took a long time for me to go like, yeah, this is the one I'm gonna get. So yeah, I don't know if there's a Games Workshop shop anywhere near me. I haven't even looked into that, but I know that there's a couple of little gaming shops that stock Warhammer, and I'm actually more likely to support them than Games Workshop. From what I've heard, like if you do go into a Games Workshop thing, it's good for a new player, but all of their people use like high pressure sales. Like if they find out that you're like casually interested like I am and looking to start an army, oh my god, they're going to want to sell you everything under the sun. They're going to try and gouge you every way they can. And if you're a new person, you may not know exactly what you need or how much better of a deal. They're going to want to sell you all the brushes there. They're going to want you to buy all the official Warhammer paints. And as a brand new person, if you just walk into a store and go like, oh, I really want to start collecting Tau or Tyranids or whatever, Chaos, they're going to just sell you everything. but it's actually really good for a new player because the people in there are super knowledgeable. They're going to be able to take you exactly where you want. So if you know exactly what you want to buy, if you do a little work beforehand, then it can be a good experience. But from what I've just heard in the videos that I've watched and stuff about this, if you're going to do that, it's usually better to go into like a hobby store, like do your research before and then decide what you want to collect. Go into a hobby store, see what they've got on offer, ask the people any questions you have about it, get their recommendations. But they're way less likely to have those like high pressure sales tactics that you get, because Warhammer is, like, it's not the most expensive thing in the world, but if you get really into it, over time it can be a really lucrative, or not lucrative for them, lucrative for Games Workshop hobby. And so all of their people are trained to like make the maximum sale possible to every person that walks through the door. I'm obviously not going to do that. I'm way too much of a frugal dude to do that. So I'm more than likely going to really do my research. I'm going to get all the stuff that I need from other places, most of it anyway. Brushes, a little palette, and a collection of paints and stuff. I'll order all that stuff, and I might even get like some really cheap aftermarket like knockoff stuff, just so I can have like a couple of minis to practice on before I start painting on stuff that I've bought for real money. You know what I mean? So that's my plan now. My plan now is to accumulate the things that I need to paint. But really, right now, it's like picking a color scheme for my army, because that's going to dictate the initial paints that I get, and then maybe getting a couple of really cheap, crappy minifigures so I can play around with it a little bit, figure it out, watch some tutorials, and then when I'm ready to buy my first actual Games Workshop minis, I'll, decide which one is the best for me, and I'll get it. Excuse me. Any ideas for the color scheme? Yeah. So Adeptus Mechanicus, when you see them displayed in the traditional Games Workshop art, are typically in a very red with kind of white or gold trim. They're very uniformly burgundy red as like an overarching central color. There's nothing in the lore that says that they have to be. I do think that red is typically the color of Mars, which is one of the Forge worlds that you can play. I've seen some Mechanicus armies that are painted blue, and like with a bluer kind of thing, and I really like those. And those are typically played as Ryza, but I don't really think that in a casual game anybody's going to fault you for saying, hey, this is Mars and it's blue. They're not going to care. I'm not trying to play competitive or anything, so. But what really interests me, and I think it might actually be forward thinking, is there's actually a splinter faction of the Adeptus Mechanicus called the Dark Mechanicum. And they're basically, they kind of are driven by the same things that the Mechanicus is, this kind of search for lost technology. But they've kind of realized that chaos affords them a better opportunity to collect and use this technology without the traditional orthodoxy. And so I'm thinking about trying to go for a really dark Mechanicus kind of look. Not necessarily blacks, but like a darker, heavier, more evil looking tones, you know what I mean? So I'm not exactly sure what that's going to take. Is it taboo to go way off and paint them like pink or something? No. No, you can paint your army however you want. There are people that have like blinged out armies, you know what I mean? They're all rainbow colored and shit. You can do it however you want. Like, it only really matters if you're going to play in like official tournaments, because, you know, those tournaments don't allow proxy models. So if you have like, you want to bring a squad of 10 dudes and you can't find the ninth guy, if you're playing a casual game at a shop, you can just say, hey, I proxied in this like Gene Stealer here because I didn't have another Tyranid, but he's a, you know, they're going to go, oh yeah. But, you know, or if you have a blue Mechanicus army, you can say, hey, I'm playing Mars. But in a tournament, they're probably going to say, you're not playing Mars. You've got Ryza colors, you know, or whatever the fuck. So, yeah, I'm thinking about greens, and I like the idea with the browns to kind of blend between, you know, red accents maybe. You plan on playing in tournaments? No. I don't even know if I plan on playing at all. I just want to have a cool looking army. I want to paint that. That's what attracts me to it initially. I'm starting to get more interested in actually playing the game. And, you know, who knows? Right, but most people are not going to play in official tournaments. Like I said, if you're just playing at the hobby shop or with your friends, nobody's going to be like, no, you can't do that. As long as you've got an army, you're going to be able to play it. Okay, well that's cool then. I just kind of assumed that if it mattered at all, it mattered in tournaments. But Sub Hunter says that he's played in tournaments and nobody cares. So you can do whatever colors you want. And you know, one of the things that I like, and see, here's the thing: I've looked into the like the game, and the things that I really enjoy about the Mechanicus are not exactly the most meta things. Like if I was making a meta army for the Mechanicus right now, I would have like a bunch of models, a ton of Scutari troops, and I may eventually get some Scutaris and stuff. But I really like the robots, man. If I'm filling out a list, I want to make a list filled with the Cataphrons and the Castellan robots, and because that to me that's Mechanicus. You know what I mean? The Dune, the walkers, and you know they got all these machines, you know, and then very few kind of like Mechanicus models. The Magos is kind of overseeing it. That's kind of how I want to. That's the army I want to build. That's light on the characters, just has really important, you know, high quality choices or commander choices for the like. I hesitate to say human because the transhumans, and then just a bunch of robots, just like an army, it's like a gang of robots, and that's not very meta. The robots aren't horrible, but they're not super great. They're better in like a little small chunk, maybe if you bring them at all. But I want to just have a whole ass army of robots, Dark Mechanicus style, where they all look kind of evil. I definitely want to put some blood on things like that. I always like it when I see somebody that's painted up an army, especially an army that's like on the darker end of things, where like a tank has this big wedge in the front of it and there's blood on it, like it's run over people or run into targets or whatever. I definitely want to do something like that on some of the things, like on some of the like sharp edges of things, like it's to add a more a sense that they're less fastidious than your typical Mechanicum would be, because the Mechanicum as it exists in tandem with the Empire is really like super religious. Like they live an almost like monastic life. Played a few games with friends years ago, but I was far more into painting and assembling. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably going to be me as well. I don't think I'll have the opportunity to play a whole lot of Warhammer, to be honest with you. But I want to, get the army painted, and then I want to maybe go back and do some customization, like do some kit bashing maybe, and add some little bits to the robots to make them look more dark mechanicus, because I think I may be wrong about this, but I think that eventually, like Chaos Space Marines are the evil mirror of the Marines, I think that they're going to come out of the lore. Like the Dark Mechanicus is going to be playable on the table, and if I have an army that's already painted up that way, that'd be really cool. Glue an arm into the tank treads. Oh yeah. Or you could just have like a whole dude like kind of take the model and melt him so he's like splattered. You know what I mean? Like the tank hit him so hard that like it just like he stuck like a bug to the windshield. That would be a pretty tough kit bash, but it would be, dude. I've never seen that, so that'd be kind of fun to have. It's just like a dude stuck in the grill, mangled. That's actually a pretty good idea. Just get some like smaller Necromunda-sized dudes and stick one in the grill. No, I'm definitely gonna like. I want to just paint them up in a Dark Mechanicus way, and then if I really like the way that they look, I want to get into the kit bash stuff. Maybe like order like a combat patrol of Chaos Space Marines, replace some of the heads. You know what I mean? Like take some of the heads and some of the bits and shoulder pads from the Space Marines and put them on key Mechanicus members, and like use them to put like some skulls and shit on the shoulder pads of the Castellan robots. You know what I mean? On pikes, put some spiky bits, to make the robots look darker, because nobody's going to say that I can't play them as normal if I wanted to play Mars or something. But, they're, now that their codex is out, you have the ability to do a custom Forge world. So I can just play them as the Dark Mechanicum and say, their Forge world is whatever, the warp. And here's the canticles I have or whatever. That's cool. So yeah, step one will be, getting the army painted up, or getting, just a chunk of it painted up. And then step two, if I really like the way it looks, would be like adding on some cool stuff. Adding on some chaos looking stuff to it, replacing like the Magos's tech staff with like a skull. Well, see, that's the thing is I want to get a few models painted up, and then if I'm really into this, I'm probably just going to save up and get a really nice resin printer. Because whatever, I can print out little bits and bobs. Like I'll buy the official, 40K models, and then I'll modify them. Because that's really appealing to me. Like buying some heads and arms that are different. Yeah, I'm definitely 100% on AdMech for sure. I'm all in on AdMech now. And that's the theme that I want to go with, is a Dark Mechanicum. So I want to paint up an AdMech that looks like it could be more aligned with Chaos, just thematically. And then if I get good at it, I want to add some bits and bobs and do some replacements and some kit bashing. Be able to print out some of my own stuff and give these guys some really lore appropriate looking tech that still allows them to be played on the tabletop if I choose. So that's my goal. That's my long-term goal. It'll probably take me like a year or more to get anywhere near that. But this year, I will start painting. I'm getting to the point, so that'll be cool. It'll be interesting. I really don't know how much of that I'm gonna like have you guys be a part of, because this is really something that I just want to do. And setting it up and like responding to comments and stuff. I might like show you guys some of it every once in a while, but like as far as like me doing like these I've seen people do these like painting live streams and stuff, man. No, this is just this is gonna be my Zen time, man. I'm gonna put on some tunes, get my magnifier in place, and get my paintbrush out and do it. Yeah, I know. I know about priming and all that stuff. You gotta prime everything and blah blah. I've started to watch the painting videos and stuff now. Yeah, the cool thing about like the Dark Mechanicus models is that there's tons of skulls already because they have like these servitor skulls. And so my thought process is that once I get them all painted up and I like the way they look, if I wanted to put some like chaosy looking skulls on as servitors, oh dude, I think it's gonna look so cool. Because you know, Chaos has a lot of skull bits and bobs that they put on their armor with like the Chaos symbol behind it and shit. And I don't know, I think that would just look really cool mixed in with the Mechanicum. Have some Castellan robots, which normally, like, I really like the look of them, but that, you know, they have some different stuff. They have some blades that they shouldn't have, and they're, you know, maybe like one thing that I think would be really cool is if I get like a little soldering iron, right, and burn part of like what I want to do. I have this idea. I know it's probably been done before, but like I want to burn away like some of the armor on some of the robots because these robots have this very clean, you know, rounded kind of functional shape, and I want to take and like burn away some of the armor on these robots and expose like these like glowing green parts underneath. And I think with like a little soldering gun or something, I could like melt away some of the stuff, or maybe even 3D print like a part that already has it there with the backing, and then paint that out. I think that would look so cool. So that's what I'm most excited about is like getting the army, learning how to paint enough to where I'm competent enough to, you know, get it looking okay, and then like adding some stuff. I'm such a nerd, dude. So many skulls. What happens to the other bones? They're not needed. Skulls are needed for the skull throne only. But yeah, I just kind of want the whole army to look like, because in my mind, and I know this isn't really supported by lore, but that one of the great things about 40K is like you can kind of come up with your own lore. In my mind, one of the things that would drift if you were talking about being in a chapter of the Dark Mechanicum is this idea that the machines have to be super well maintained. Like the Dark Mechanicum would be more used to grabbing, you know, Xenos tech and Chaos tech and bashing it all together and making these kind of more, and maybe they have less regard for the actual machines and look at themselves as vessels of the Omnissiah or whatever the fuck. And you know, so that the machines look like not like they're in disrepair, but just that the protocols have been kind of dropped. You know, they don't they alter them in ways that aren't in line. And you know, if something doesn't need to be fixed right away, they don't fuss over it because they, you know, they can bash together another one from its bones or whatever, rather than treating every machine like it's this holy thing, which is what the Mechanicus does, you know. But yeah, like the Mechanicus has its own like little tanks and stuff, so I could get a couple of those and then get a couple of Chaos tanks and, you know, maybe put a Chaos grill or some Chaos wheels on the tanks, or some, you know what I mean, just to kind of like show that they're profaning the machines a little bit with other technology. I'm sure they do have competitions. There's no way I'll ever be able to, compete on that level. There's some real artists, man. Like what a lot of people end up doing is when they really get into it, because most people just can't, don't, there's a certain artisticness needed to paint a mini to where it's like a piece of art. And like, if you get to that point, you might commission a person, like get a special model that's really detailed that you want painted up just super, super nice for your army or for your display. And then you find, and there's tons of these people, somebody that's just really talented, and you commission them to paint up the model for you. But that's definitely down the road for me. I want to paint up a little group of my own dudes. Paul, what's up? How's your day? Uh, you know, it's a day. Trying to relax a little bit. Tis technically a day off for me, so that's nice. Well, I'm going to try and not have backlog because I do have a tendency to be scatterbrained. So I'm not going to purchase a bunch of stuff at once. Like I'm going to purchase 1 or 2 models. Like I'm not going to buy a giant combat patrol at once. And if I do, I'm going to paint everything in it before I buy anything else. Like I'm not going to be one of these dudes that walks out of there with 8 boxes of Mechanicus, and then I've got like 90 boxes of bits laying around and I don't know what to do with my life. No, I'm gonna buy 1 or 2 big, models that I want to paint up, paint them, get them fucking table ready, and or as best as I can, and then get another pack of models, do every slash one of them, get table ready, move on, and then once I've gotten that done, like the baseline, then I can start kit bashing in my mind. Then I can go like, all right, I'm gonna buy this, or I'm gonna print out some chaos bits or whatever, stick them on there. That's phase 3. Phase 1 and 2 are the hard part. Phase 3 is, in my mind, it's also going to be hard, but it's going to be fun. Paint up the bases too. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing that. I'm definitely going to do something with the bases. A lot of people just do like a gravel, you know what I mean? They'll find some sand and they'll coat the base with like a glue, like a model glue, and then kind of roll it around in the sand so it looks like that there's some terrain that they're walking on or whatever. So yeah, I'll definitely do a little something with the bases to make it, look good. But in my mind, that's something I can do after I've got the army painted up. The bases will probably be the last thing I do. I'll make that the last little project to make them table ready before I start kit bashing. It's like, let's get these bases painted up. And then as I kit bash, I might want to add to the bases as well. If I'm trying to make them look a little more dark, if I've got like, a Mechanicus, a dark Mechanicus Magos or something, one of the kit bashes I might want to do is just like put a broken skull down on the ground near his feet or something, or, add a broken Space Marine helmet or something. In the beginning, made the mistake of painting the sides of the model base and not just the top. Yeah. Warhammer diorama, maybe. Yeah, I mean, like the fact that I'm gonna be painting these like more for my own pleasure than to actually like use them on the table. Yeah, I might want to make get some terrain and paint that up, or maybe even commission that. Just have somebody paint me up some dope looking terrain, and then get one of those big rotating platters and set my army on it and find a place in my house to put it up that I can look at it and enjoy it. Yeah, lots of people do that. There are lots of people that are into the hobby that are not even interested at all in the game. They're interested in the aesthetic, and I'm kind of one of those people. I think it would be fun to try and play the game, but I could care less how the game is played. I just like the aesthetic. I like the lore behind the army, and that's the idea, you know. It's been a long time since I had anything I would classify as a hobby. So it'll be kind of nice. I'm looking forward to that. Oh. You can sell rocks and grass and snow for the bases, yeah. I know you can buy little bits and bobs, little rocks and little sandbars and stuff. I'll do something with it. Anyway, my phone's about to die, so that's usually a good time to call it quits. Thanks for chilling. It's been cool. I'll see you next time. Bye.